Hello and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be looking into the disappearance of Crystal Rogers. And we are going to begin at Wikipedia, and because it always has a lot of information. And you can make donations to that, I believe. So anyway, Crystal Maria Rogers is an American woman from Bardstown, Kentucky who went missing on July 3rd, 2015. At the time of her disappearance, the 35-year-old mother of five was living with her boyfriend, Brooks Howick. I don't know how to pronounce that. Their 2-year-old son and her other children. I don't know if it's Hook or Howick, sorry, is the last person known to have seen her, stating she was on her phone playing games at their home when he went to bed. She was gone the next morning when he woke up and her car was not in the driveway. Okay, that doesn't make any sense right there. Her family began to worry after multiple attempts to contact her that day failed. 2 days later, on July 5th, Crystal's 2007. See, I could play games on my phone sitting in the bed while my husband's sleeping next to me. I don't know. Her family began worrying after multiple attempts to contact her that day failed. 2 days later, on July 5th, Crystal's 2007 Chevrolet was found parked with a flat tire by mile marker 14 of the Bluegrass Parkway. The keys were still in the ignition and her purse and cell phone were also found inside. She was officially reported missing by her mother, Sherry Ballard, the same day. The Ballard family was very vocal about their suspicion of Brooks Howick having some sort of involvement in Rogers' disappearance early on in the case. Well, it sounds suspicious right from the get-go. In an interview, Crystal's sister said Brooks has not offered once to search or help or do anything for the family. On July 8th, what's his first name? I hate it when they call him by their last name. Brooks. So, okay, on July 8th, Brooks was brought in by the Nelson County Sheriff's Office for questioning. Nick Howick, Brooks' brother, and a Bardstown police officer called mid-interview and told him not to speak with police. The next day, Nick was called to testify in front of a grand jury, which led police to suspect he also had involvement in the disappearance. It is at this time that Nick stopped cooperating with the sheriff's office. However, he agreed to a polygraph test after being interviewed by Kentucky State Police. Nick finally took a polygraph test on July 20th after being contacted by the FBI. The examiner expressed grave concerns about the results with Bardstown Police Chief McCubbin. On October 16, 2015, Nick was fired from the police department and Brooks was officially named a suspect in the case. Yeah, it sounds like they both did it. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be so judgmental. A white Buick, because they automatically sound suspicious when he said she was still awake and then he woke up and she was gone. And then the other one tells him not to talk to the police. And then he doesn't pass the lie detector test correctly, where they're thinking, oh yeah, and then, yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? I probably shouldn't give my opinion. I shouldn't be judging people. A white Buick became an important piece of evidence when a private investigator found that one was parked at the Hewitt farm the night Rogers disappeared. How do you pronounce that? The Hewitt Hawk brothers' grandmother, Ann Whitesides, owned a white Buick, but sold it several weeks after Rogers went missing. What? Authorities issued a subpoena for the 82-year-old to testify in front of the grand jury. The subpoena stated that the car may have been used to dispose of a body. Well, that makes sense that she sold it then. Cleaned and sold in an attempt to prevent evidence from being discovered. Yeah, Whitesides refused to testify in front of a grand jury. Attorney Jason Floyd said her statement to the police and the car buyer's information was enough. A judge later ruled to keep all future proceedings involving Whitesides confidential. In August of 2016, police searched the residences of the Whitesides and Nick for DNA, the brother of the guy, brother of Brooks. So, despite multiple search efforts and a 100,000 reward being offered for any information, Rogers remained missing. The Nelson County Sheriff appointed in 2019 has stated his commitment to solving the case. In an interview, he said the agency has a good idea of what happened to Rogers, and his mission is to find enough facts and evidence to make an arrest. On the morning of November 19th, 16 months after Rogers' disappearance, why do they call people by their last name? Anyway, after Crystal's disappearance, her 54-year-old father, Tommy Ballard, was shot to death. He had been hunting on his private property with his 12-year-old grandson, Roger's eldest son. He had been shot once in the chest. Police have cleared the grandson of foul play and have since ruled out suicide, as Tommy's gun was never fired. The FBI conducted 2 searches in Bardstown. The first search occupied during August 2020 and the first search occurred during August of 2020 and the second was in August 2021. The second search took place in the Woodland Springs subdivision where Brooks Construction Company built several houses shortly after the disappearance of Crystal Rogers. Oh, yeah. The FBI has not disclosed any details of their findings at this location, but on August 27, 2021, they did announce that an item of interest had been recovered from the concrete at one of the homes. During this most recent search, the FBI also stated that they know there are people in Bardstown who have information on this case and added that it was time for these people to come forward. Wow, there's their references. That is so sad. And here's some pictures. She was so pretty. So here is the Charlie Project, and it says she was missing since July 3rd, 2015 from Bardstown, Kentucky. She's 35 years old. She was 5'9" to 5'10" and weighed 160 pounds. She had on a Pandora bracelet. And her car was accounted for. She had blonde hair and blue eyes. So she may have used the last name Ballard. She's following tattoos, a footprint on her back, stars on the top of her foot, and the cartoon character Tigger on her ankle. Wow, it says Rogers was last seen in Bardstown, Kentucky on July 3rd, 2015. She's never been heard from again. Her Chevy Impala was abandoned on July 5th near mile marker 14 on the Bluegrass Parkway in Hardin County near Elizabethtown, Kentucky. It had a flat tire and the doors were unlocked. Roger's keys, cell phone, purse, and other belongings were still inside it, and the phone's battery was dead. Roger's loved ones said she barely traveled to that area. Roger's live-in boyfriend, Brooke, was the last person to see her. He stated he went to bed at 11 o'clock the night before, and Rogers was still awake at the time using her phone. When he woke up, she was gone. He said he wasn't initially concerned because they had a stressed relationship, and Rogers would sometimes leave home and go stay with her cousin. He tried to call her on July 4th, but was unable to reach her. Nick, Brooks' brother, was a police officer with the Bardstown Police Department at the time that Rogers disappeared. But in October, he was fired. Authorities stated he interfered with the investigation, and they think he knows what happened to Rogers. Nick failed a polygraph test about Rogers' disappearance. He advised Brooks not to talk to the police, and he refused to cooperate in the investigation. Photos of Brooks and Nick are posted in the case summary. In December 2015, 5 months after Roger disappeared, Danny L. Singleton was indicted for 38 counts of perjury for allegedly giving false testimony before a grand jury investigating Rogers' disappearance. A photo of him is posted with a case summary. He was a longtime friend and employee of Brooks, and he knew Rogers, and sometimes she would give him a ride home from work in her car. In January 2016, two other men were charged with false reporting. They admitted they had lied to the police when they made statements claiming Singleton had murdered Rogers. Photos of Nethery and Howard are posted with a case summary. Authorities believe Rogers was murdered. Brooks is considered the prime suspect in her disappearance. Oh yeah, because they had a stressed relationship. They were probably going to get a divorce. She probably would have gotten the children. He would have had to pay child support. But they think Nick, the police officer, his brother, may have helped cover up the crime. When investigators searched Nick's police cruiser, they found blood traces on a blanket in the trunk. Well, then, duh. Although foul play is strongly suspected in Rogers' case, they haven't charged anybody. Rogers left behind 5 children, and her case remains unsolved. So they just didn't do anything to him. Oh, you're fired and that's it? And this one says there's somebody's theories on the Bardstown murders and the disappearance of Crystal Rogers. And they say, I used to believe that the murder of the police officer Jason Ellis on May 25th, 2013, the Netherland murders on April 21st, 2014, and the disappearance of Crystal Rogers on July 3rd, 2015, and the murder of Tommy Ballard on November 19th, 2016, in Bardstown, Kentucky, were all related. It's a relatively small town to have so many deaths and a disappearance. I assume they all had to be related, but I've recently started looking at other ideas. Wow. I wonder if the brothers who killed her had killed before or something. You never know. Details: on May 25, 2013, Officer Jason Ellis was killed after finishing his shift for the Bardstown, Kentucky Police Department. Ellis had signed off on the radio and was driving home when he encountered branches blocking the road on exit 34 on the Bluegrass Parkway in Bardstown, Kentucky. To ensure the safety of the public, he got out of his vehicle to clear the branches. While attempting to remove debris, he was shot several times and died shortly after. Officer Ellis was discovered by a passing motorist. He was a canine handler, a narcotics dog for the police department. In addition to his patrol duties, outside of work, he was heavily involved in the community, including coaching youth baseball. Their opinion is that it's possible whoever committed this awful crime wanted to kill somebody, anyone, it didn't matter. The killer sets up an ambush. Officer Ellis stops to remove. They might have been after him. Some find it suspicious because he wasn't driving his regular vehicle that night and didn't have his canine with him, but they feel that it's a coincidence, as they think him having the canine locked in the back of his regular vehicle sadly wouldn't have changed the outcome. Could he have been targeted? Absolutely, but there's never been any solid evidence. He was said to have been trying to clean up drug activity in the area. This could have made him a target, but they've always had a gut feeling it was I don't think it was completely random. I doubt that if there's that many people. Details: Kathy Neverland, 48, and her daughter Samantha, 16, were killed inside their home on April 21st, 2014. So somebody's like getting away with murder. Their bodies were discovered by a family member. Samantha Netherland was a sophomore at Bardstown High School. Kathy Netherland taught special education at Bardstown Elementary School. Samantha, a young, hopeful teenager, had been stabbed. Her throat cut. Her mother, Kathy, had both knife and bullet wounds. The two had been beaten and killed. Why? KSP still believes the person or persons inside a black Chevy Impala seen traveling north on US 150 from Botland into Bardstown on the night of the murders knows something or had something to do with the murders of the Netherlands. And their opinion is the only explanation that they see is a possible random horrific murder, someone traveling through a violent person. Yeah, I don't think so either. They're all random? I don't think so. No. I don't know. There has been gossip about surviving daughter being involved, but they don't see any evidence of that. She didn't receive an inheritance when their mother and sister were killed, and the idea she killed the remaining family. Her father recently passed from cancer because they supposedly didn't like her boyfriend. Doesn't seem like a real motive. No, she was in college and could date anyone she wished to. There was also gossip that Kathy taught Jason Ellis' son at Bardstown Elementary School. That was disapproved by her family, and Samantha didn't babysit for the Ellis family. That was an untrue gossip and hearsay. See, I don't know because I don't know what's true and what's not true, and it's hard to believe it's random. And then there's another one they talk about the disappearance of Crystal Rogers on 2015 was reported missing by her mother after she had not been seen or heard from. The same day Rogers was reported missing, her car was found abandoned, and they believe this was domestic violence situation that turned into murder. It's sad, but almost daily occurrence in the United States, according to the statistics. And yeah, it appears as though the murder was covered up by family members of the murderer, and they hope for the sake of Crystal Rogers' children that she will be properly laid to rest in the future. But I don't think the other ones would be random. And then it talks about the murder of Tommy Ballard. Details after his daughter disappeared in 2015. Tommy Ballard created Team Crystal, a group of Bardstown, Kentucky community members dedicated to finding Crystal and bringing her home. On the morning of November 19, 2016, 16 months after Crystal's disappearance, Ballard was preparing for a hunting trip with his 12-year-old grandson on family property next to Bluegrass Parkway in Bardstown, Kentucky. An unknown suspect fired one shot and hit Ballard in the chest and instantly killed him. So it was a good aim, and he thought he could get away with it, and he was ready, and he sat there waiting. So, of course, and they said they do believe this is connected to the disappearance of his daughter. They think the murderers believe Tommy was bringing too much attention to them in their small town and wanted to shut him up. To kill a man in front of his young grandson, you must be an evil, cold-hearted person. Well, yeah. And it talks about what Mr. Ballard was a much-loved son, brother, husband, father, and grandfather who was simply trying to find answers about his daughter. So, yeah. And it says the Ballard family went through a similar situation in 1982 when Tommy's sister, Sherry Ballard, who was 7 months pregnant at the time, was murdered by her then husband, Eddie Barnes, because he didn't want to pay child support. See, that's the reason. So this person says, so my best friend from the area and I lived there a couple years. I believe they're all connected because what they don't tell you is that all these people were closely related in one way or another. Bardstown isn't as small as people think. There are 3 different high schools. You can live there your whole life and not know anyone. Something a lot of podcasts and articles and shows didn't tell you is that Jason Ellis' wife is also a teacher, and she worked closely with Kathy, and Crystal's boyfriend's brother worked closely with Jason, as well as their family was always known to sell drugs. It's a small enough town to know that. I don't know if that's true or not. And this one says, I'm from Kentucky and know people in that area. Miss Ellis was a substitute teacher in the area, but that doesn't mean that her or Kathy knew each other. Then in passing, Officer Ellison, Officer Hooks were employed by the same agency, but it says they didn't work. How would they know if they worked any cases together? Who is this person? How would they know whether they worked cases together? Or if one was investigating the other one or had information about the other one? And I don't know. Especially if one's a drug cop and the other one's doing drugs or selling drugs, you don't, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, it says, I agree that it would be easier if they were all related, but I don't think they are. Well, I don't think they're going to be random. It's just the whole thing sounds suspicious. This one says the cut brush that Jason Ellis stopped to remove was not actually blocking traffic. See, how do they know that? And other vehicles had driven right on past as I would have done at the time of night. A policeman, as a public safety officer, could reasonably be expected to stop. At least one state investigator expressed to a report, maybe somebody asked him to stop, I don't know, that he was concerned that the murderer may have involved someone in law enforcement. there seems to be compelling reason to suspect that Jason was targeted. He was a patrolman, not a detective. He did make drug arrests that followed traffic stops, but they were hardly as significant bust. He was not a serious threat to local drug dealers, but he could have made enemies. Killing a patrolman just because he once arrested you is possible, but highly unusual. Jason's wife was a substitute teacher who had worked at the school where Kathy worked. Ah, see, they would have been in the break room together. They probably knew each other, but they have not been linked in any other way. Yeah, but they're living near each other, working at the same school. Kathy was attacked at the front doorway, suggesting that she was attacked after she answered the doorbell. Samantha was attacked near a different door, suggesting she was attempting to flee. She suffered more extensive injuries than her mother, but it was apparent that their assailant wanted both of them dead. For someone to knock on a random door, kill both occupants, and leave without any robbery or sexual assault would be an extremely unusual crime. A more likely explanation would be a killer who did not know the intended victims and got the wrong address. I don't know. I don't think so. They lived in a small, isolated neighborhood. None of their neighbors had subsequently been murdered, but I wonder if they were involved in sketchy activity. The pair were probably in the lowest risk group for being murder victims. The other daughter was a person of interest because she was the only person who appeared to have anything to gain from her mother and sister's death. Yeah, they probably don't even. There's something being left out here. I have read nothing to suggest that she was anything other than a typical college student. Yeah, I don't think she's going to do it. She's focused on her schoolwork. She's got a lot of schoolwork to do. All I know about the boyfriend is that he was former military, and her mother apparently disinvited him to their home for Thanksgiving. She later married, but I don't know if it was to him or someone else. Her relatives do not seem to believe she was involved. Crystal's boyfriend gave an account of his activities that night. She disappeared. That was established as untrue, and it appeared to be more than just a simple lapse in memory. That led the police theory that he killed her and disposed of her body, possibly with the help of his police officer brother. He is clearly the focus of the investigation. Crystal's father was definitely beating the drum about her disappearance, presumed murder. There is no evidence that he was conducting any kind of independent investigation or was privy to any information that law enforcement didn't have. He might have been murdered in hopes that the investigation of the case would fade away if he wasn't constantly raising the issue, but it seems more likely to me that killing him would only increase the pressure. The similarities between his murder and the murder of Jason have been noted. The Bardstown PD is the similarities between his murder and the murder of Jason have been noted. The Bardstown PD is a common denominator to all but the Netherland killings, but the connections are vague. But there are connections. The department had its share of petty corruption, but nothing that could be linked to the murders. The police chief at the time of the murders, who has since been fired, had a reputation as a ladies' man who was rumored to have had affairs with local married women. The local gossip mill has pointed out that Crystal Rogers and Jason Ellis' wife were both quite attractive and his type, but I am not sure there's any evidence that he was involved with either woman. Kathy Netherland was older and does not appear to have been his type. When a region that has had virtually no murders suddenly has 5 unsolved murders in a short period, it is statistically unlikely that at least some are related. I suspect that one or more people murdered Jason to solve a problem, and Crystal and her father were murdered by the same to solve perhaps different problems. The Netherland murders appear to be unrelated, but without a discernible motive. I wouldn't rule a connection out. So, and I don't think they should rule a connection out. I think if there's somebody's going around killing people, there's probably a connection. We just probably don't know what it is. Because what is it going to be? A few different people are suddenly murdering people in the same area and not the same people? So, yeah. It said the thing about Samantha's death was that she seemed to get the brunt of the beating, and it seemed incredibly personal for some reason. But she was just a kid, and her mom seemed like a lovely woman as well. The personal beating of Samantha is what keeps me from thinking it was somebody random, though I also can't hypothesize who would have had such an issue or contempt with a girl to beat her so badly before killing her. Maybe she saw something, or she knew something, or she said something. So, yeah. But, I didn't realize there were so many murders. This one said, good write-up. I honestly don't know the situation, but let's say that the murders are all connected. However, I noticed one major difference in these murders, and that is Kathy and Samantha murder. Don't you think this one is so brutal? Beaten, stabbing, sliding throat, gunshot, as if something unpleasant. As for Crystal Rogers, well, they don't know how she was killed. They don't know. So, and if there's two brothers doing it together, and even the grandmother selling the vehicle, I don't know. I heard I heard about this on a podcast, and they were linking it to other officers that were tied into the drug market. I can't remember which pod I heard it on. It's been years. So if you want more information, you might want to go listen to some people's podcasts. It is possible you might have heard it on my podcast, Unresolved. I did an in-depth multi-part series on the subject a few years ago that has been more recent podcast called Bardstown that's really good. So they did a podcast. So if you want to listen to those podcasts, they're probably very interesting. It's really sad. So then you can go on to this. There's a lot more. There's a lot more to read. And you can pause this and read it if you like, because, yeah. This one said, I don't buy the story of the Bardstown Money Gang. Yeah, I don't know. So, I'm just going to pause this here and there, so if you want to pause it and read it, you can. So that it makes it easier for you, because I don't want to read all of this, because there's a lot. And, yeah. This one says, Offer Ellis's murder to me seems perplexing because it could have just as easily been someone. I don't think so. Yeah. Alright, I'm scrolling down some more. And you can leave comments and let me know, what do you think about this? What's your opinion? And then here's this one. It says there's several podcasts. Some have garbage info in them and aren't correct about some details, but if you listen to them, you'll get the gist. Otherwise, you can check out archive material from the Kentucky Standard. This one said, thank you for responding, but I'm looking for something more concise and less time-consuming. And then here's a timeline. July 3rd, Crystal Rogers is last seen by Brooks. July 5th, Rogers' car is found abandoned. And July 8th, Brooks is interviewed by the sheriff's office. July 9th, Nick testified in front of a grand jury. July 10th, the chief speaks to Nick, telling him to fully cooperate and meet the detective. And he refuses, saying if he knew anything, he would have already told them. July 15th, Nick is interviewed by the state police and discusses when he can take a polygraph, and he suggests July 20th. July 20th calls Nick asking him to come for the polygraph when he refuses because he's off duty. July 24th, he's on duty when the FBI again asks him to take the polygraph, and he agrees. The examiner then called the chief to express his grave concerns with the results. September 9th, Nick is suspended. October 14th, Nick signs an affidavit saying he told Brooks to fully cooperate. October 15th, a hearing is held. October 16th, Nick is fired and Brooks is named as a suspect. So, and here's some more on a timeline. I don't know if it's the same timeline or a different one. So, I'll scroll down on that in case you need that timeline. Because, they may not always stay up. Sometimes it may still be there, but yeah. Oh, yeah, this gives more information on the timeline. So, and then here's the link. It says it's pretty current. And then you can continue the thread, and this is the FBI.gov, and it shows a picture of Crystal Rogers, and it gives a description of her, and it talks about a reward and a little bit of details, and it tells you you can submit a tip. If you have information related to this or the other cases that are in the same area, you can call the number to or visit to give a tip. You can contact your local FBI, or so you can contact them and give a tip. That way it's not, if you don't think the police are, you might want to contact the FBI, because the FBI, and give them a tip. And maybe you can figure out a way to do it anonymously if you don't want them to know who you are. I don't know, but I'm sure there's possibly a way to do it. So, and don't forget to stop and pray for these families of these people that have lost these loved ones and have gone through so much. That's just terrible, really. And anyway, I thank you so much for tuning in. Please feel free to leave comments. Let me know if you know information or what your thoughts are, because I don't have a lot of viewers, and I do appreciate the comments and my viewers so much. And I thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great day. Bye-bye.